I don't even want to do this show anymore.
The Showdown of the Ages, a cult classic and a personal favorite. But only one can move on. Today, Austin Hargrave, Barry Kramer, Alex Faciane, and Shane Gill join me, Forrest Lee, as we decide what show about mutant creatures moves on. It's Arthur vs. Xmen, the animated series, and this is Madness.
Welcome back to Madness. Today is an interesting one. Very interesting.
There was a lot of S talking before the episode started. There was a lot of S talking. I think we're gonna be.
What's S talking?
Shit talking.
Oh.
It is Arthur versus Xmen the animated series.
The matchup we've all been waiting for.
I'm actually nervous right now.
Austin,
Don't start with me.
Do you have an opinion on either of these
You know, I really don't care that much about either of these shows.
He's gone. He's rolling back.
I heard you're a really big X-Men fan.
I love X-Men. The one that shoots out of his eyes is cool.
Someone told me this is your plate.
All of the Arthur stuff here is mine. Literally all of the stuff is Arthur's
You didn't have to buy it.
I had more that I didn't bring because I was packing it up and I was like, this is probably good.
So PBG likes Arthur.
Why?
Just right after. Okay, well, God, I was mentioning this to you guys earlier because like I was thinking about all the other shows and what I would talk about. I was like, I don't need to worry about Arthur. I'll just like it'll just come to me on the spot. And now like we're ready to go. I'm like, wait, what do I talk about? One thing that I will say about Arthur though, it has these. It really inspired me. If anyone has seen my videos, they know that I do a lot of musical segments.
Yeah.
That was something I think was directly inspired by Arthur. They have a lot of fun musical stuff. They even had an entire musical episode, which if you haven't seen Arthur, I would say check that one out. It's incredibly good. I get those songs caught in my head all the time.
The theme song to Arthur is awesome. It sticks
I
in
think
your ear.
it's my favorite on the list probably, and that's saying something.
Yeah.
Yeah, not only is it sticky in mind, it's like speaks some truths. Like I remember listening to it for the first time a couple of years back. I was like, you're right. Everyone on the street does have an original point.
Yeah, that's actually something. I don't want to like blow everything out too quickly, but that is something I really like about Arthur. It's just these regular kids. Nothing crazy happens, and it's like regular kid problems, and they learn to work together. They learn that like you said, everyone has a different point of view. You're walking down the street. Everybody that you meet has an original point of view.
I just have to say, I think it's the best thing anything's ever been said about a children's show theme song is it speaks in truths.
Yeah, that's some real shit.
That's some
hardcore.
good shit, Shane.
And the show really does live up to that theme song where almost every episode involves like something where the kids have differences. Like Muffy is this really rich kid, and her best friend is someone who is nowhere near as well off. Her dad's a garbage man, and they're like best friends. And so they always have, like Muffy has to learn, like, hey, she flaunts her wealth all the time, and she has a lot to learn. And, it's
hitting all those stereotypes.
Yeah. Arthur's the beauty of Arthur though is that Arthur the character, right? Arthur is like where Dexter is like played for the joke, right? Like he's the butt of the joke because he's like kind of a dick. Like Arthur is a show that teaches you how hard it is to be a nice person all the time in the real world, because Arthur is constantly like, the meme is always like that fist, but like it's real. Like Arthur is like the guy who's always like, are you serious? Like this is how you're gonna be about this situation? And it's like, listen, Arthur, like the world is not fair. And he's like,
but it can be.
But it can be if we were all Arthur.
Yeah. I do actually like that Arthur. You think, he's the good guy that always solves the problems, kind of like a Hey Arnold type character. He really isn't though. Arthur is a very flawed character. He's very self-centered, and I mean it plays out a lot in the show. But he actually does have a lot of flaws that he ends up having to learn. And I kind of lost my train of thought. I just need to defend Arthur, but I just put it on the spot here.
Is that why you relate to the character?
Yeah.
Can you?
Because I'm kind of annoying and really self-centered.
When you say
I'm always beating my sister up all the time.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. When you say annoying, I just think of DW as the worst thing ever.
Counterpoint to that.
Yeah.
I used to always think that as a kid too.
Okay.
And as you do when you rewatch Arthur constantly through your life,
As
more
you
recently,
like you do.
Yeah.
more recently I was watching it. As a kid, I thought DW was this annoying character and I didn't like her. But
Yeah.
as an adult, I actually really like the character of DW. I think not only does she make the episodes a a lot more interesting. She also is a very relatable character in a lot of ways. There's one episode, I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head, but she is
Nobody's expecting to know.
Oh, you can't remember
All
the name?
the
It points
names
it
of the
back like that.
So she's being this brat the whole time, and it's like, man, you're really hating on DW through most of this. But towards the end, you realize why she's being a brat. It's that the other kids at school don't invite her to this party, and then they don't like her, and she doesn't fit in. And so she doesn't know how to deal with it, so she acts out. So eventually you start realizing, like every person has different experiences in life, like the intro says.
This comes from
And it
somewhere,
makes-
but she's still obnoxious.
Yeah, well,
So-
she's learning, and she learns through the episode, you know, that...
So it's been 5 minutes into this recording. We haven't mentioned the Xmen.
That's not my forte.
Let me roll it out. I'm gonna vote for the X-Men probably in this, even though the show itself is a bit rough by today's standards.
It's pretty rough.
It's
I
rough.
think he's rough by 90s standards.
No, but you have to think about this. Superhero shows weren't even a thing at the time, really. It was like
Batman.
but Batman's later a little bit, right?
No.
No, it was 92, I think. 93, 92, 93.
Well,
like that.
Batman's the best show ever. It's not fair. but X-Men.
Yeah, life's not fair, Arthur.
Yeah, the real talk. X-Men tried to tackle like very
Giant social issue.
huge, like racism,
Yeah.
like classism, things that are not even touched on in cartoons most of the time, especially in like a overt way. And X-Men has, it's not as it's kind of cheaply made. It's kind of like
It's a little bit rough. The animation is choppy.
it's kind of really ugly and stuff, but in like a craft way. Like I think the character designs are pretty on point with the comics and stuff.
It's probably of every game of every show in this bracket.
Yeah.
This is probably the X-Men's probably the show that's most like an '80s show.
true.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Just kind of
It really
we made
has-
it a little bit later.
It really has that 80s flavor, but to me, like, the value of X-Men is how ambitious it is, and how, like, adult
Do you think that I think you're correct, but do you think that it deserves the credit for that, or the X-Men as a concept created back in the 60s?
I think it does deserve the credit, because if you watched the X-Men that came before the X-Men show, it was like a kind of almost like a backdoor pilot for the show. Prior to the X-Men, which if you're old, you maybe remember getting a cassette of this in the mail like I do. But basically what it was like a first draft. Wolverine was like weirdly Australian in it. It was like very light on social stuff, and it was just more about like, this is the Dazzler, who, by the way, the Dazzler didn't make it into the 90s version.
Yeah.
But if you look at the first episode of the 90s version of X-Men, the very first thing that happens is that Morph freaking dies at the end of the first episode. They're like, this is a cartoon, but like, fuck what you heard. This is like, like people are gonna fucking die in this show. It's gonna be a real humdinger about like you watch this with your dad. You know what I mean?
Some of the episodes that we the three of us watched to like prepare for this were like, it was their adaptation of Days of Future Past, and it's like, oh yeah, one of the X-Men kills a United States senator and ruins the world.
Right.
So we have to go back in time and kill him.
X-Men certainly was. It's a little rough around the edges, but it certainly was a more ambitious show than Arthur. Not necessarily in like the way like the technical stuff. I mean, the animation and the music and everything in Arthur's really good. But like as far as the storytelling alone, Arthur's much more simple. Like, hey, my friends at school are picking on me, and X-Men is like you said, like
This United
There's
States
assassination
senator
attempt.
is picking on
I'm
me.
actually surprised to hear all this, because I'm again going mostly off of nostalgia here. I haven't watched any of these episodes recently. I don't remember any kind of social, political
X-Men
intrigue
is-
stuff.
X-Men is-
I remember cool superheroes that had very clearly
like-
defined roles beating the crap out of it.
it is probably lost a lot. On
It just, I just remember flashes of color and just
But,
punching.
like,
It was like
a lot
Power
of
Rangers.
If
It
you
was
aren't
just.
privy to those issues, you're not going to pay
Yeah,
attention.
I wasn't.
lot
I
of
was
the
like
plot is
6 at
like-
the time or whatever.
A lot of the
It was
plot
just-
is Xavier going to Washington to try to peacefully talk out like,
Right.
hey, we're being oppressed. We want rights. And
No, it's just like, here's the boring part. Where's the fight? That was what I cared about as a kid, not
just-
this
it's just-
senator doing something.
It's just amazing to me that there was a show that they were like, let's do X-Men, let's actually do X-Men as a cartoon. And then they frickin' did it, and they, the toys were awesome for that show. The action sequences are awesome because the characters look like people as opposed to
the
like...
intro's amazing.
Yeah, and that's
the
the
intro
other
was
thing.
cool, yeah.
That's the other thing.
Is
that I
that
was
the
gonna
best
say.
instrumental theme song for any show?
it's up there.
It's
Dude,
so good.
the shot of them like running at each other, and then like that little like on the logo. It's like and you're like, yeah. X-Men is a good show. It doesn't it doesn't. It's not totally successful at everything that it tries, but it tried to be. It tried to land with like.
Yeah.
It tried to land with like Star Trek.
It tried to land and then face planted.
No, it didn't face plant. It didn't face plant. It just didn't always. You can't always tell that politically charged story for kids.
Yeah. Well, this is my view of X-Men, and as we were watching it, I slowly began to realize that most of my memories of this show weren't actually from this show, and it was from the better show, which is X-Men Evolution.
Oh, a robot, I believe.
90s X-Men has the good character designs. It brought us that six saber-tooth, like...
Yeah, those were all based on Jim Lee's iconic
They are, but
redesigns.
But kids at that time in the 90s...
I'm saying that as a positive, not
Yo,
like
yeah, absolutely. But the kids in the 90s, like, maybe didn't buy comic books as much as they did previous decades, and I feel like a lot of the X-Men that you would, like Omega Red or like Apocalypse, or some of the crazy characters that maybe don't have a place in like your average children's show, really get spotlit in the X-Men show, which, like, as somebody who loves the X-Men, you know, as from the adult perspective now in 2018, like, you know, looking back at that show has some value as a piece of like X-Men lore.
It probably didn't introduce as much to that world as Batman did.
Yeah, exactly. But X-Men brought to life was no easy task, and I think they did it with the skill of like a show that could have had people in it.
I think one thing about the X-Men that is a positive is it's pretty charming. Mm-hmm. Like we watched I think 3 episodes this morning, and even though you could tell it was like rough, I was like I could watch more of this.
Yeah,
like I could keep going.
It's watchable.
I also liked how unintentionally comical a lot of the stuff.
There's a lot of funny one-off lines.
Yeah,
the editing is...
I honestly can't tell if, like, just from their budget, they were like, okay, this isn't going to look as good as we want. We should just kind of... Kids won't care, but an adult watching this will, like, laugh.
Yeah.
There's, like, one scene where they're fighting in, like, a city street, and Storm gets hit into a building and rubble falls on her. Cyclops is like, Storm, no, she's claustrophobic.
Yeah, ignore the ton of rubble on her. She's claustrophobic.
It's because back in those days with violence, like there was all these like this like attention from like the Senate and all this stuff, and so they had to be like, she's not dead, which is like always bad news for a cartoon, right? But you know, if we're gonna go into what's bad about the X-Men that I need to like acknowledge, right? The animation is pretty bad.
Yeah,
There was
rough.
another moment I was going to bring up where Magneto is like, I sensed the coming of a new world order and I had to go watch it for myself. And you just see him like float up, and stand in the air next to a window.
They put him in his ball and don't animate him so much.
Yeah.
I agree with something that Shane was saying, actually, in that it was rough around the edges. It was fun to watch, though. I would definitely watch more, but the one thing that was bugging me is it seemed like the ideas of the storytelling just were not matched up with the animation, or even the script writing was occasionally just seemed like not very good. Like,
it's melodramatic, it's stilted.
It would just
people are like, yes!
It would just end like someone would drop some line, and it would cut to a new scene, and I was like, wait, that was the end of that scene.
Yeah,
like,
it feels like ambitious, well thought out ideas that aren't executed very well.
They probably outsourced it to some studio that had no idea what the X-Men were in some country, and just like it came back and they were like, well, this is it. Probably. I doubt that there was a lot of like thought given to how the voice acting was recorded.
Yeah.
It sounds really bad. Like the microphones are like, it sounds like somebody like they're like talking through like crinkly paper.
Even the voices aren't super great. Storm is weird. She speaks in Tolkienisms and well, you were saying
Wolverine
is like,
it's just no matter what happens, he's like somewhat like there was a debate between who was like good and who was bad, and he's like, I'm gonna kill you, and he's like, no, he's bad, I'm just gonna beat you up. It's like he didn't have, that was his whole character. It's just like he's just so much.
Magneto and Beast are like so up their own asses every time they're on the screen. Like Beast is like, perchance a human could be this, and that's like the Beast every time he's on screen, and then Magneto's like, I'm doing like bad dictators things, like,
but for the good of the world.
Yeah, he talks about them.
I don't. Maybe if I had seen more of the show, because I definitely didn't watch it as a kid. There's more character development, but it sure didn't feel like there was going to be much character development. It didn't really feel like you're saying like a lot more like an 80s show, like a He-Man kind of thing.
It has that, but I mean, it also tackled Days of Future Past. It also tackled the Phoenix Saga. It also tackled like a bunch of like just huge ambitious things. They go to the Savage Lands. They go to all these places. Like, you see dinosaurs in the show. You see time travel in the show. You see there's new mutants all the time, so the powers aren't the same every time. So there is value there. I will say, though, that the weakness of the X-Men has to do with the actual production of the show itself.
Yeah.
Do you guys think that Arthur would have fit in as a character there, as a weird mutant art
Dude,
bar?
I could write 6 issues.
I can visualize it now
least.
running along the side of them.
Well, I'm just gonna stop you guys here. We haven't talked enough about Arthur.
I agree with that.
And most of it has been me.
Yeah.
So,
Okay, the most
Arthur.
recent thing I've seen about Arthur was a montage from an episode featuring Matt Damon
Okay.
within Arthur.
they had a lot of celebrities in Arthur. They had Mr. Rogers was in it.
And it was surprisingly tactful.
Yeah.
It was a humanoid Matt Damon with like a weird animal nose. Just
And it
walking
was-
around acting normal, and,
He was like-
and everyone's like, "Yeah, it's Matt Damon. He exists in this universe."
Yeah, they had a
Of
lot
course
of
he does.
celebrities in Arthur, and some,
Like
some
back
of
in
those
the day, or
episodes
more
were
recently, because this seemed like a newer
I'm thinking back in the day,
Okay.
back in the hand-drawn seasons. The episode with Fred Rogers is actually a really good episode, and it teaches Arthur not to be embarrassed about things that he
And
likes.
he's never embarrassed again.
That's
That's
very wholesome.
His
and
pants
on
gets
brand.
ripped off in the next episode or whatever. Actually,
That's a
I
good
think
reason to
I
go.
think it was
Yeah.
before that, but
The,
whatever.
the one thing about shows like that I think Arthur kind of falls into sometimes, and don't get me wrong, the character of Arthur, really good. I really love that Arthur is like us. Like, he's like it's like almost like a Seinfeld-esque character. Like, he faces all our Woody Allen or something. Like, he faces all our like anxiety-based problems really
From
well.
childhood.
Yeah, but the problem with shows like that is that how many shows are there about learning that exact lesson that you just talked about with Fred Rogers? Where it's like, oh, like, you can't be embarrassed about your interests, or like, little kids are annoying and sometimes you have to deal with them, or like, believe in yourself. Like, it's like, it doesn't have a lot of new things to say.
Well, there's a lot of characters in
but
it.
it does say them very well.
Yeah, we haven't even talked about any of the side characters, but there really are quite a bit of characters.
The rabbit kid is really a
Buster.
good character.
There's
yeah.
it actually very
His name
gut-wrenching.
really is Buster?
Yeah.
I was trying to think that his name was Buster this whole time, and I like didn't want to say it because I was thinking of Tiny Toons.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like his rabbit friend, whatever. Yeah.
But there actually is some pretty gut-wrenching episodes in it, and one of them is when Buster, who's Arthur's best friend, moves away and he just leaves, and Arthur's like, "What?" And it plays this sad music, and he really and like, and Buster's not in the seasons for a while. I mean, he'll come back as like, you know, Arthur in Arthur's mind, and eventually he moves back. But for a long time, he just genuinely is not around, and that's like, I mean, that's a lesson that a lot of
That's
people
bold.
have to learn too.
That's a big.
Like,
that's
it's a
bold
big,
for a
it's a
kid's
big
show.
move for them. Yeah.
yeah, and they have enough characters that, you know, it seemed like, what are they gonna have it without Buster? It's like, oh, okay, well, Buster's just gone.
not good.
Like.
But yeah, I guess kind of the question is kind of what Alex was saying. Like, what sets Arthur apart from a lot of these other kind of, I'm thinking of like Franklin the Turtle kind of thing, where it's just like, I'm a kid and
Or
I'm
Little
learning
Bear.
how to.
Frankly,
yeah,
I
like,
think
there's a lot of shows
Franklin?
that
I think it just does it really well, and I don't know what the budget
You know
for
what?
Arthur was, but it's incredibly well done.
Is
show.
Arthur setting itself apart relevant? Because we're comparing Arthur and X-Men.
Well,
Yeah,
but
I'm just saying-
we're just
I mean-
comparing like which is best.
Which is the
Yeah,
best.
yeah.
that's fair, but I'm just more curious of just like what makes Arthur stand apart as like, I know it's only these two against each other, but it's like, why is Arthur on this list?
I think if Arthur wasn't a show about learning about yourself and like coming of age as a kid, and that's not clearly why it exists, it's probably another one of those shows that's like in part publicly funded, right?
It's PBS, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So like for me, like Arthur's here because of that, and I feel like it kind of fills similar role to Magic School Bus. I think maybe as a show it's a little stronger than the Magic School Bus.
Absolutely.
But I don't think that its mark on education or like anything teaching related or like child.
It's not really an educational show.
I mean, it's more about
it's a social social education.
development. Yeah, but I think its value in that regard is not as ingrained in our culture as like I think he's around now more because of the meme factor than the actual quality of the show. And I think like I wouldn't be as sad. I wouldn't be as sad about erasing Arthur from existence as I would about the Magic School Bus.
I feel the other way. I feel like Arthur's more important.
Then the Magic School Bus?
Yeah. I feel like the lessons in Arthur are more valuable. Like from Magic School Bus, I mean, you could
technical
say
stuff.
it's cool that it like teaches kids stuff, but you can learn that in a book. You know,
Yeah,
you learn about
you learn how
these
to get
complex
along with
social
people.
situations
Right.
in
Yeah.
a book.
I'm not discounting the quality of the lessons. I'm just saying like people aren't like, yo man, I learned how to be a human from Arthur. It's like everybody. There are people who exist. There are people of all kinds. There are people who know every episode of Arthur by name. But what I'm saying, or who thinks that they should, at least.
Well, I want to answer. I know we're running long here. Sorry. But I want to answer Barry's question, because when you first asked, I wasn't thinking about it. Nothing came to my mind. But you asked what separates it from other shows like that. It's honestly it's a really funny show. There's a lot of funny moments. Google Arthur Savage moments. There's entire montages.
Everybody's super polite in Arthur, but they just like rip.
Yeah, there's some bits where it's like, whoa, they went there. Like, and there's funny Arthur moments. Like I said, a lot of the musical numbers are genuinely clever and catchy. It's just a well-produced show. I mean, I think if you want to criticize it in that it's not super unique, I think that's fair. But I think I can't think of a show that is similar to Arthur in that format. Even some other shows on this list that do it better than Arthur. I think Arthur is the best.
Hey, dancer boy, want to show me some moves?
We have to wrap up. Does anyone have their vote?
X-Men.
Arthur.
Okay then.
All right,
I don't know.
So we were talking about Arthur and X-Men.
Every day. We're just like both singing as loud as we can.
Just screaming it. Well, we were talking about Arthur and X-Men, and I was like thinking about the shows as we were talking, and I was like, if someone put Arthur on a TV and X-Men on a TV in front of me, what would I rather like watch right now? And it's X-Men.
Goddamn.
You've never even seen the show.
Goddamn, hell yeah.
See, I'm intrigued to keep watching X-Men and just this.
But you were intrigued because it's not good. Like we were making fun of it the whole time.
This weird.
It's got a lot to say.
Binge-worthy show.
Yeah, it's got a lot to say.
Incredibly crappy dialogue.
The
Like
action's
who cares
good.
if the dialogue is good or bad? It doesn't matter.
Morph died in episode 1, guys. Morph died in episode 1. Poured out for Morph. Everyone's favorite X-Man, Morph. We lost him in episode 1. Everybody thought Morph.
He was your favorite, and he wasn't even in the show.
Morph shoo-in on the team for the whole time.
Somebody may have died in Arthur, and nothing's coming to mind right now. But
died in
I'm sure
Arthur.
somebody did.
Somebody may have died.
If we're counting who
died in
did.
Arthur.
Yeah,
Morph
Morph
died in Arthur.
It's been running for 25 years. I'm sure someone's died.
Yeah.
Buster died in episode 1, and then he came back.
I'm really conflicted because on the one hand I agree. It's like if there were two CRTs,
Yeah.
it's like I would watch X-Men. That's the one I'm
Yeah.
nostalgic for. That's the one that I watched more of growing up. But not only does your argument speak to me, but okay, so with Magic School Bus, it's like, well, I don't like Magic School Bus as much as Ed, Edd and Eddy necessarily in terms of like pure watchability, but I voted for that because I think it's more important.
But Arthur isn't as important as Magic School
Ah,
Bus.
come on.
But if it's the idea of like textbook knowledge versus real world like social dynamic knowledge, X-Men tried to get in that space a little bit, and by your own admission, it floundered.
But ultimately,
in the execution.
But ultimately, it's a show about superheroes punching each other.
Which is why I'm like,
But the action scenes are nowhere good as something like Batman either. Like they're pretty stale.
I mean, I'm going 100% off the nostalgia here, so it's just like I got nostalgia for X-Men versus like I think Arthur's probably more important.
Everything
which is
Sometimes
why-
you just gotta go with your gut.
Everything he got from Arthur, I got from Doug, and I don't think it's 100% sure that everybody got what he got from Arthur, whereas we're pretty much all in the same bus with Magic School Bus.
X-Men.
I can't believe it. We were sitting there all morning and sitting on X-Men the whole time, and now we're like, Will, Alex sits here and talks for a while.
I think if I watched an X-Men episode, I'd probably flip to Arthur.
You would have if
But
you were
until I
watching.
watch another episode, I'm sitting with X-Men.
Thank God you didn't. Thank God you didn't.
I don't even want to do this show anymore.
The internet.
That's a wrap.
I'm sorry.
He doesn't even need to wrap it up. It's just over.
I feel like I personally attacked Austin here.
It's all on you, Barry.
You personally attacked Arthur.
It's gonna slide through the loser bracket like you wouldn't believe.
X-Men will just do so well in the winner's bracket since we sit here the whole time talking about how bad it is, and now it's gonna be in the winner's bracket.
Arthur's the dark aardvark. I think he'll make it.
Which of these shows do you think should have won? Please let us know down in the comments. And if you enjoyed this, please remember to like and subscribe because we have new episodes of Madness every Tuesday and Thursday. Also, check out the first few episodes of the season to see what we think about other cartoons.